World Water Week session on integrating indigenous knowledge in the design of nature-based solutions. My name is Raj and I work for Oxfam. I will be moderating the initial section of this session. This super interactive session is being co-organized by Oxfam's Transboundary Rivers of South Asia, TROSA program, which is supported by the government of Sweden. This session is being organized in partnership with IUCN in Asia and Development Alternatives. TROSA is a regional water governance program working on the promotion of more rights-based approaches in water resources governance in the transboundary basins of the Ganges, Brahmaputra and Meghna, GPM for short, and Salween in Asia. Communities living in these basins have been practicing various traditional and indigenous resource governance practices to tackle water stress, flooding, and river erosion, to name a few. And as we know, the intensity and impacts of these water-related challenges are further aggravated due to climate change. There has been an increased interest in and investments on resilience building initiatives, including various nature-based solutions, NbS for short. To ensure these NbS initiatives and investments are more inclusive, it is critical to ensure existing indigenous knowledge and practices are better integrated in NbS design and implementation. And more importantly, leadership, participation, and ownership of indigenous and local communities are promoted through recognition and protection of their rights. As more investments flow into NbS design for various climate action, and also as part of the newly launched Decade of Ecosystem Restoration and other goals set under the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, it is important to understand and integrate more human rights-based approaches to such NbS design and restoration initiatives. It is in this backdrop, this session aims to share examples of ways indigenous knowledge and indigenous communities leadership, particularly those of women, have led to various NbS initiatives from the GBM basin. This will be a 90-minute session, and I would encourage all participants to share their comments and questions in the chat box. We'll try and answer as many as we can, and we'll definitely continue this engagement after the event. With this, I would like to invite Ms. Åsa Hein, Counselor and Program Manager, Environment and Climate Change, Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok, for her opening remarks. Åsa, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Raj, for a very good introduction to this very interesting seminar. First of all, I would like to congratulate TROSA and your partners for convening this important session, focusing specifically on indigenous knowledge in nature-based solutions. Indigenous knowledge is key to address many of the complex challenges of climate change and its impact of vital natural ecosystems like forests, rivers, mountains, and coasts. Many of the traditional ecological practices and the knowledge systems associated have been critical to the protection and governance of these vital ecosystems, biodiversity, and different ecosystem services. Empirical evidence suggests that the indigenous and local communities are the best guardians of forests and other natural ecosystems. And as the latest IPCC assessment report reminds us of, the climate crisis and its impact on vulnerable communities, including many of the indigenous communities. There is a need to further promote the use of indigenous knowledge and tools in the design and implementation of localized and context-specific climate actions. Such actions, also referred to as nature-based solutions, ensure food, water, and energy security of resource-dependent communities, and in turn build capacities to adapt and respond to climate change challenges. As nature-based solutions gain more traction in climate change and other development policy circles, it is important to ensure that the indigenous knowledge and associate resource rights of communities are respected and recognized in the design and implementation. In particular, more participation and leadership of indigenous women in this initiative is critical to ensure their rights and that aspirations are represented and respected. This session will discuss examples and highlight ways that more indigenous knowledge systems could be better integrated into the design of nature-based solutions at local, national, and transboundary level in order to make these actions more participatory and inclusive. The findings and suggestions will be useful in identifying potential areas of engagement to promote more collaboration and cooperation to tackle some of the complex climate, environment, and human rights challenges at transboundary levels in Asia and beyond. I would like to wish the session a great success, and I very much look forward to learning more about the future actions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Åsa, for your inspiring opening remarks, and thank you for underscoring the need for more inclusive NbS and the opportunities for cooperation on management of shared ecological resources, and also trying to contextualize it in the light of the recent IPCC AR6 report. So thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Vishwaranjan Sinha from IUCN Asia to facilitate the next session, which will also start with a brief poll, followed by an introductory presentation on indigenous knowledge and nature-based solutions that will set the scene for this session. Vishwa, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Raj, and thank you, Asha. I'm really happy to be here at this very important session. My name is Vishwaranjan Sinha, and I work for the IUCN Asia Regional Office as a program officer, mostly on water and wetland issue, and currently supporting the PROSA project from IUCN side and involved in its regional implementation. So today, as Raj said, I will be quickly presenting you some ideas around the session today, which is on integrating indigenous knowledge in the design of nature-based solution. So trying to look at nature-based solution and indigenous knowledge and their connection. And after that, we'll follow up with 3 case study presentations from 3 speakers, and then we'll open the floor for the discussion. So to start with, let's ask participants 2 questions, because this is about indigenous knowledge and nature-based solution. Could we request all the participants to tell us 1 word or 1 idea on what comes to your mind when you think about indigenous knowledge and nature-based solution? So Avinash, can people see how will it start?
So just use your Pathable platform, and there is a poll, and people have started polling there. The first question you can just put your 1 word or whatever.
Can you start? Could you start,
yeah,
please?
It started. It is started there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sharing my screen. Just a minute. So this is. It is there. Yeah. So this is the poll, of course. So please requesting all to just participate in the poll. The first question.
So what comes to your mind when you hear about indigenous knowledge? So let's hear from people what they are saying. Could you please, make it full screen so that we can see what kind of words are coming? Wow, quite a lot. So dispossession, connection, preservation, knowledge is also longevity. I think it is very, very a unique idea. I mean, it's linked to the long-term sustainability, management, deep, forgotten. Very nice. I think actually these are the ideas that synchronize a lot with the indigenous knowledge, that these are linked to the people and communities, how they are living with the nature. It's sustainable, it's sometimes forgotten, it's practical, and it supports the preservation of the nature. So any more ideas coming in here? I think this is what we have for now. Let's go to the other one. Let's see what people are saying. And I think these are the questions that we will be kind of, oh yeah, it's updating, sorry. So customary, now, yes, those specific keywords are coming, customary laws. So we will be discussing that. The laws which communities use to govern themselves traditionally. These are very much, they are these laws, generally we see them honoring the nature and is based on the intricate understanding of nature. It's about sustainability. So clearly, I think one of the couple of things which is coming here, knowledge, of course, it is part of the traditional knowledge and indigenous knowledge, but customary law and sustainability, this is coming up as the big, thought and connection. So I think connection also I can see in the back. So I think that's interesting. Let's what people have to say about nature-based solutions. So what comes to their mind when they hear about nature solution. Let's see if there are between these two herd, I mean, in the way the people are perceiving it. So harmonious, ecosystem, conservation. So we can see here again, some words are repeating, services, interventions, buffer, interesting. I mean, what kind of buffer are we talking about here? So buffer against climate change impacts, maybe. Sustainability, so see again, so there is basically this poll tells us one thing, that what we are trying to explore today is already very much linked. Indigenous knowledge also promotes sustainability. They help us preserve the ecosystem, and same for the nature-based solution. But a couple of things I think here we might be missing is, looking at some of the societal challenges and addressing them. Green, sensitive, synergies. I think synergies is, and this is very much important as we will explore today nature-based solution. We'll see the synergies is one of the important aspects, and basically nature-based solution gives us a way to synergize between different pathways or different multilateral agreements that countries have signed globally, like SDGs, UNFCCCs. So indigenous knowledge and NbS is a good way to synergize different multilateral agreements. We'll see later how it works. So clearly, I think this is what we say: flexibility, very much important, ecosystem, sustainability, and services. So these are clearly coming up as few big ideas here, and we see that there is a clear connection between indigenous knowledge and the nature-based solution. So let's explore a bit further. So Avinash, shall we end the poll now, and can we go to the presentation?
Yes, Gary. So you can share your screen and run your slide.
Yeah. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you. So again, I would like to thank Trosa and the CEDA for and all the partners for giving us this very interesting session. We have it was a good part in a way that we were like trying to explore the topic more through various meetings to prepare for this webinar today. So these are the two questions we started with today about what comes to our mind when we think about these two jargons, the indigenous knowledge and nature-based solution. And we saw that people clearly think that they are linked and they both contribute to sustainability, participation, ecosystem services, etc. So trying to look at what actually nature-based solution means and how it is defined compared to the indigenous knowledge. So as per IUCN definition, there are two things in this definition that you can read on the slide: actions to protect and sustainably manage or ecosystem, which is natural or modified, but with the aim to address societal challenge. So that is very much important, that any action that simultaneously protects the nature and society, and also solves some societal challenge, is what is nature-based solution. We'll explore it, how it is different from the ideas and the way we were presenting nature earlier. Now, looking at indigenous knowledge, a lot of things came from our poll today, but indigenous knowledge is about understandings, skills, philosophies, which the societies have developed over long history of their interaction with the natural surrounding. So it is not something that has come in one day. It is a knowledge which has been transferred from one generation to another through tales, through other means. This knowledge has been used by the local communities to govern themselves, and that's the day-to-day life. When we say that is what we link to customary laws, which came out very clearly during the poll, that the customary laws of the indigenous people. So here also, this is a diagram below the indigenous knowledge, just showing that indigenous knowledge encompasses ecological knowledge, phenological knowledge, and seasonal knowledge. So phenological, basically, I think other things people understand. Phenology is linked to when plants bloom, when they fruit, when they lose their leaves. So the knowledge of how the ecosystem or the plant life is interacting with the nature and what changes are occurring. So this knowledge has been acquired by them, and this is especially if you look at the transhumanist community or the community who move from one place to another, the pastoral communities. There are a lot living in Nepal and Bhutan. It's a way of life for the people. So how they move from one place to another, how they decide that this is the time to go on the higher altitude, because they have to start before the season changes. And they look at a lot of indicators from the nature to basically understand how the seasonal changes are occurring, and accordingly they plan their passage. So again, thinking a bit of why we are using this new term nature-based solution, and why it is becoming more and more important and used by many organizations these days. When the whole discourse of nature started, the priority, the way the narrative was built, it was around addressing or conserving the ecosystem or the species or the habitat. So many times it led to the alienation of the people, especially those who depend on nature, who live with nature, the indigenous people, the local community. So this idea and this narrative was a bit alienating to the people's desire and their rights. And that's where this narrative changed from what you say, priority over species to priority over resolving societal challenges. And there's so many different kinds of societal challenges that you can see in this diagram, linked to food security, climate change, health, etc. So now this is the changing narrative where nature is more being looked at as a solution to the different problems. And in this discourse, indigenous people are at the center of it. This is another diagram, just I wanted to show you why nature is important, because the nature, it is well understood that nature, like the 15, the SDG goal 15, 14, 6, and 13, which are very much linked to the conservation of ecosystem and water. They are at the base of achieving all other SDGs linked to economy and society, like the reduction in poverty, or hunger, removing hunger from all over the world, or whether it's about economy, increasing people's developing partnerships, increasing economic well-being of the people. So achieving the economic and societal goals under SDG is very much dependent on the base, which is the biosphere. So just as a thinking tool, I wanted to show you this diagram. Now going a bit into some example of why we are emphasizing indigenous knowledge, basically, especially, in the context of Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Meghna River Basin. So, generally as a part of Asian culture, there is this discourse of living with nature. And here are 3 diagrams indicating 3 different ways in which local communities or indigenous people use nature. The first one here is what we can call a green infrastructure approach under nature-based solution. This is a living root bridges tree. So this bridge that you see here is made from the ficus roots, and making these kinds of bridges takes hundreds of years, but they are very durable. They are friendly with nature, and this kind of work is done by one of the indigenous community which lives in northeastern part of India, in the Meghalaya plateau, which is one of the known for one of the rainiest places in the world. So there is a lot of streams dividing, different areas within Meghalaya plateau. So the local community developed this very unique nature-based strategy to connect with themselves. So this is one example which is very time-consuming, but it's very durable and very inclusive. Other two examples I wanted to show you are more linked to the increasing global recognition of indigenous knowledge systems or people system in the climate science. The one sketch that you see above is an example of a system which generally is practiced in the floodplains of Ganges river basin, maybe other places also, but this specifically looks at that. So it's called Ahar Piine system. So what happens? This area, the floodplains of Ganges. The crops are very much vulnerable to floodings. So what the local community do is that they dig big ponds, and then they connect it with several such big ponds with small pines or connector. They do it before the season starts. But this practice, because agriculture is taking over land for all other uses, there is an increasing demand for land for other developmental sector. So this practice is discontinuing, and that is leading to more vulnerability among local farmers. So that's where IUCN and partners are also working to promote, conserve, and promote those kinds of practices. Because in this case, it is not just about flood control, but it also leads to specific economic gains like increased food production from the ponds through fisheries, etc. The one below you see is, many of you must have heard about fruiting gardens. Yes.
Can you please wrap up in 1 minute?
Oh, okay, 1 minute. Yeah. So these are some examples of how the different case studies, and why we are discussing today. There is this indigenous people's knowledge, because only 5% of global population, they are among the most poorest people, 15%. They control 50% of the global, they manage 50% of the global landmass, but they only 20% of it. There is a low engagement in policy formulation, and there is changing lifestyle, which is leading to changes in the loss of those knowledge. So there's 2 slides, Raj, and then I will finish. So this slide just tells you about one way to protect and promote the rights of indigenous people. So IUCN has developed these global standards with 7 different criteria. And as you can see, the 4 criteria in the table, they are directly linked to the indigenous people. And the nature-based solution itself, its design requires ensuring that all the stakeholders and their rights are considered. Then these are some other specific recommendations where or the Global Convention, which clearly recognizes the rights of indigenous people. These are some of the resources that you can see. It will be available, I think, after the event. So with that, thank you so much. And I think this is the essence slide that I wanted to show you. I found it on internet about some words from Jane Goodall. She was an environmentalist, and she lived with indigenous people, and this is what she has to say. The indigenous people around the world before they made a major decision used to sit around and ask themselves, how does this decision affect our people 7 generations ahead? So thinking about any decision which will have impact till in a long time, we need to consider those before taking it. And that's how indigenous lifestyle was. And that's why we need to integrate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vishwa. Thanks for setting the scene. And it was very useful in terms of understanding the context and also some of the global standards you talked about. And now we move on to the next session, which will be more interesting in terms of the case studies from three different presenters. And I will request Bishwa to moderate this session. And over to you, Bishwa.
Thank you, Raj. So, here, I would like to first welcome the three speakers today. Geetika. Sorry, just one thing. Yeah. So, could I please welcome Geetika? I will maybe stop sharing the screen for now. And I would like to request Geetika, Nuzhat, and Pratibha ji to please introduce yourself, starting from Geetika.
Hello. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm Geetika Goswami. I work for Development Alternatives, and we work on several nature-based solutions in the semi-arid zones in India, and I will share one of those studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Geetika. Now I would like to welcome Pratibha ji.
Hi everyone, Namaskar, and wishing you all very happy Water Week. I'm Pratibha Brahma. Presently I'm a vice chairperson of TriFit, which is mainly working for the livelihood mission, especially for women. And at the same time, I'm well connected with NERSON, a very active civil society who is mainly working for marginalized and downtrodden people in one of the remote corners of India, Northeast, which is a very, still we are yet to see the real development in true sense, and looking forward to share my experience in this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha ji. Now, okay, could I please call Nuzhat? She's from Oxfam, Bangladesh, to please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Vishwa. Very warm greetings from Bangladesh. I'm Nuzhat, working as a project officer at Oxfam in Bangladesh under its Climate Justice and Natural Resource Rights Department. So I mainly advocate for the rights of most marginalized riverine communities, especially in terms of, establishing their access and control over water-related resources. I feel very glad to, present some fascinating cases of one indigenous method from both Bangladesh and Nepal in front of all the esteemed guests and participants. Thank you. Thank you, Vishwa.
Thank you very much. So very quickly, for the sake of participants, now I will be requesting the three speakers. They are discussing real life cases with you, and they will be exploring around the three things. Every speaker will talk about the context that they are talking about. So what is the context? So introducing everyone to the context, the challenges, and then they will talk about what were the challenges in integrating indigenous knowledge in implementation of nature-based solution, or any societal challenge that they were trying to address, and what strategies they use. So kind of what mechanism these case studies speaker or these cases used to address those challenges. So to start the presentation, maybe I will start with Nuzhat, our young water professional from the Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna Basin. So Nuzhat, over to you.
1 second. Okay, let me just share my screen. Thank you, Vishwa. Okay. Hope everyone can see my screen. And just 1 second.
And every speaker will have 7 to 8 minutes to present their case, so that we have enough time for question and answers. Okay. So I hope the speaker will cooperate with us. Thank you very much.
So welcome to my presentation today. So this is my presentation topic, which is integration of indigenous knowledge in nature. So as I said earlier, Oxfam is promoting the idea of inclusive water governance, which focuses on empowerment of most marginalized riverine communities for the last few decades. As a part of its, continuous effort, ROSA came into being in 2017. So while working for this project, we found some fascinating cases of nature-based solutions in both Bangladesh and Nepal. We saw some stark, similarity, which was very great in terms of joint, cooperation as we have been doing for years. So now I will talk about the context which actually, we found while working throughout the project. We observed that, erosion is one of the pressing issues in both the countries, in both Nepal and Bangladesh, as you can see in the picture. If I talk about some statistics, we found that in 2019, erosion destroyed homes of thousands of people in Bangladesh, and 3 million people, almost 3 million people lost their, uh, were displaced during heavy floods in 2019. Similarly, in Nepal, thousands of people lost their homes and agricultural lands due to flood and erosion. Overall, this problem causes out migration of people from these villages. Also, very sadly, this has created a negative notion about river among the communities, and which overall these problems poses a great disaster risk for these communities. So uh, considering the severity of the issues, Oxfam Bangladesh started working with the people in Tista and Jinjiram river basin in the northeastern part of Bangladesh. Similarly, in Nepal, Oxfam Nepal started working with the support of their local partner NEEDS in Banara and Chaudhar River in Kanchanpur district. So this is the map of this our working area, and today I'll just share my case stories based on Namapara village mostly. Now, interestingly, we found that being threatened by the severity of the issues, people have been using their techniques on their own, to manage erosion for years, and uh, bundles, as you can see in my slide. Bundle is one such way of, traditional way of managing river erosion in both the countries, which is known in Bash in Nepal. And it has been used by communities for ages, and it has even part of, river management work of the governments from the British period in Indian subcontinent. As you can see in the picture, bamboo is the main component for this structure, which is locally available and biodegradable. The main design principle for this kind of structure is that it uses the river flow and based on river-based ecosystem. However, the design of bundles is based on different size of river basin, and also since it's based on river-based ecosystem, also the design principle also is based on the river-based ecosystems as well. Now, what this structure does is that it diverts the river flow to the center of river. Since river flows are slowed down across the bank, seals are built up next to the bundle and river banks are stabilized. For today's presentation, I'll spare the technical part of how bundle works. Rather, I'll talk about how we engage community to initiate this indigenous practice. Like all other indigenous knowledge, like actually most of indigenous knowledge, this practice was not well documented, and even though it has been used by communities, it was actually used in scattered from in various villages. So in case of Namapara village in Bangladesh, they are also suffering from erosion. People observed the use of bundles in their neighboring village, but they didn't know how to start this initiative on their own in their own village. So what they started doing is that they started gathering among themselves. They started discussing about this initiative. They involved influential people, from local influential people to local headmasters and religious leaders. They also involve local government body to initiate this process. And for this process, they used a platform called Nodi Boituk. Nodi Boituk, or river meeting, which is a platform
Joseph, we have 2 minutes
initiated by
more.
Oxfam in Bangladesh. So, and similarly, Oxfam in Nepal also started consulting with community with the help of local disaster management communities. So now I'll talk about some of the benefits of this intervention in terms of restored ecosystem services, as you can see in the picture, both the communities from Bangladesh and Nepal shared that erosion has been much reduced in that area. They feel much safer as their riverbanks have been protected. And as you can see in the picture, sediment has been deposited across the riverbanks. Also, it increases the fertility of the soil around the surrounding area. And since river flows are being, diverted to the main to the center of river, scouring of river starts automatically. It acts as a natural danger. And in terms of biodiversity gains, in both cases, it increased habitat for fishes and aquatic species. Also, another interesting case story from Nepal is that it provided economic benefits to the community, where local women group planted cash crops like citronella behind the restored banks, which give them over 200 USD dollar, which is a great deal for them. Another, I would like to mention that if I talk about the cost effectiveness approach, this kind of initiative is way cheaper. It requires $3,000 to $10,000. Obviously depends on the size of the river basin, but while hard engineering structure like embankments or dams, which is a traditional way of now river bank management, costs around $25 million for one stretch of riverbank in Bangladesh, which is very costlier. So this is a way more cost effectiveness. So I'll talk about the challenge while throughout the process. One of the major challenges we found that already these communities are poverty stricken, and to manage this kind of initiative on their own is a great challenge for them. Another challenge is that, like most of indigenous knowledge, it is not well documented, and it is a great setback for the community to advocate for this with stronger evidence. And another important factor that due to lack of resources, lack of monitoring and evaluation is not in place, even because and since it's a transboundary river, looking at the impact of this intervention on the other side of river is also very important, which community lacks due to lack of resources. Another important point I would like to obviously mention that there is a mandate of community participation to initiate this process or to take actions for their own issues, but they don't know how to access those resources. They are not consulted about the water related policies, which actually acts as a great challenges for these communities to fund or or to initiate this process. Another point is that
Wrap up soon. Nusrat, your time is over.
one second, I'll just okay, just share one case story in 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute, so then I will just end my presentation. So in the end of my presentation, I would like to share a case story. In the right hand side of my slide, you can see a bundle in one village, which is known as Bogbantha. In the left hand side of village, you can see another set of bundles in our project area. It's all Namapada village. The difference is that in the first case, communities were not involved in the process. Since they're not involved, it also created barriers for them in access to the rivers, and it didn't help them in erosion management. And in the later case, since communities were actively involved throughout the process, since they possess more knowledge about their area, it actually helped them. They're also part of the designing of the bundle. You can see the bundles are lashed at an angle wise. It helped them to eventually manage erosion effectively. So community stewardship is one of the key point to sustain this kind of initiative. Obviously, I'd like to focus on women and youth leadership, which played a key role in sustaining the process. And last but not the least, partnership with local government always works, whether in terms of access to funds or to create more better policy environment for these communities to start this process. So with that note, I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you
for
very
giving me
much,
the time.
Nusrat. So I think on the point, it's a very good example, and especially referring to your last slide, very simple things can help solve the people problem, but they can also create problem for the people if they are not consulted and involved in the designing process. So with this, I think there will be questions from participants that we can take later. I already saw on the path table someone asking about if and how these nature-based solutions have been used and how communities are kind of engaged in monitoring those NbS. And I think you have clearly indicated through this story that how you are engaging them through Nadi battles. So Nadi means like rivers in South Asia. And so a consultation around river by the local community along the river is basically a Nadi battle. And that provided them a way to connect with those communities. So going next to Mrs. Pratibha Brahma, welcome to you, ma'am. I think you are a special guest today, coming from also an indigenous community and a woman leader working for the rights of her community. So welcome you, ma'am. We look forward to hearing from you. You can share your presentation directly.
So may I please request Avinash ji to share the presentation? Avinash.
Yeah, he will be sharing that. Yeah, he's doing it.
Sorry. So happy Water Week once again. Today I'll be presenting integrating indigenous knowledge in the design of nature-based solution. And this indigenous method of irrigation and embankment has been the Bodo tribes they have been practicing. May I please request Avinash ji to share the screen? Is it okay? Like presentation is. I'm sorry.
The screen is shared now.
Pratibha ji, you cannot see the screen?
I think there is some miscommunication with Avinash ji.
Is it visible to you, Vishwa?
Yes,
Right
we
from
can
the
see.
first slide. Yes.
Oh, first slide. Okay.
Right from the first slide.
This one?
Yeah, and the second slide.
This is the second one.
Okay. So mainly I would like to share a little bit about my community. I belong to a Bodo tribe, and Bodos are mainly inhabitant of Brahmaputra Valley and river. If we speak about riparian community, I think Bodos are one of the best examples of riparian community, because rivers play a great significant role in our community, and this tribe is scattered in other states of Northeast India also, North Bengal, Nepal and Bangladesh, etc. And presently they are dominant tribe, indigenous tribe in Bodoland Territorial Council, located in the foothills of Bhutan. And it is an autonomous setup under 6th schedule within the state of Assam. And the Bodos have struggled for long for self-determination to preserve their culture, language, identity, land. When the tribe faced alienation and suppression politically, socially, and economically in their own land, even after independence of India. And the reason is now is peaceful after signing of accord, and we are looking forward to really experience all-round development in all aspects. And Bodos are agrarian community, and since time immemorial, Bodos have adopted their own method of what do we say, public work department. We can say it as public work department, and it is said by the scholars who have written ethnographies that it's rarely, wherever the Bodos have dominated, they have faced famine. And even when the farmers through their observations closely of the nature, when they felt that the rainfall is going to be scanty, the Bodo farmers used to really go for water harvesting, build an embankment, and they used to divert it from the nearby river and take it to their own field. And this method of the diversion of water in Bodo is termed as jampui or dongs, and it is diverted from local rivers, streams, mostly and the Bodoland territorial region is like located in the foothills of Bhutan. So upstream, in the upstream, we have the Bhutan hills, and in the downstream, we have Bodoland territorial regions, and we have many rivers which flows down towards our territory. And Bodos, being an agrarian community and rice being the staple diet, they have been practicing this indigenous method of irrigation by building their own jampuis and dongs, and this we can say is need-based solution in the region, and this traditional method, I believe, should be preserved to conserve the chain of ecosystem in nature, which is being threatened by massive deforestation, especially in the Saralpara forest village, which is being mentioned in the slide, and in other areas of Bodoland territorial region also. We have massive deforestation in one hand, and introduction of costly but not much efficient modern technology of irrigation in Bodo villages, not keeping into account the need-based solution in the region, must be critically analyzed in present day's situation. And modern technology, I believe, should be incorporated with cost-efficient traditional method. Jampuis and dongs are channels diverted from local rivers, streams, mostly flowing from Bhutan in India. As I have shared in my earlier presentations also, we have around more than 56 rivers flowing in our territory. And this indigenous method of irrigation is gravity-based system. And the point of diversion is created by an earthen or stone bund in the river channel. And many headworks are located in the upstream in Bhutan. And we have branches diverting from the mainstream, which irrigate our agricultural fields and provide domestic water supply. But water availability is subject to distance from headworks and communities engaging with the jampui. Some jampuis or the indigenous canals serve heterogeneous habitations, irrigating farms in a number of villages along its course. And here we have an example of Saralpara forest village, where we have practically worked with the villagers in sharing water with our neighboring country, Bhutan. And we are, our group, along with NERSON and our students union in the region, All Bodo Students Union, could help around about 15,000 farmers when they were really facing struggle, when Bhutan thought of diverting the water. This was affecting around 15,000 farmers, and practically I'm very proud to say that indigenous method of irrigation, which is need-based, which is really a need-based in the region, has a very beautiful governance. It's community-based governance, and we have been experiencing that whenever we face water scarcity, the village headman, he takes the lead in really helping the community so that we can really use
sorry to disturb you. Could you please wrap up because you have.
Yes. And in if we speak about governance, like water distribution and sharing is governed by the committee of users, which is known as Banda committee, and it consists of around 20-25 members. And it has a president, secretary, treasurer, and it is renewed every year. And there is Halmaji, who coordinates in the meeting and take care of the maintenance of our indigenous method of irrigation. And this Halmaji is paid by the community. And while generally like work and renewal of work is taken during pre-monsoon in April, and issue faced by the local farmers, as this is very important to share with you all. And the riparian community in our region, we are facing more or less, we are, though we have number of rivers, we have not been able to tap the potential resources, and our communities, the riparian communities are quite poor, and we have not been able to engage properly in our livelihood missions to alleviate our poverty level. And not all branches of this indigenous Zampai carry water throughout. It is Bhabar trek, and as a result, we face drying or water scarcity during the winter, and some totally remain dry for 6 months also. And drinking water, it is available in other side of our neighboring Bhutan, but it is most of our areas adjacent to Bhutan face non-availability of drinking water, and our women especially have to walk miles to carry water, to fetch water from Bhutan. And now during this COVID pandemic, it is really causing problem to the locality due to closure of Bhutan border. And women, because of this, face numerous health related issues. And Jampai water is used for all domestic purposes too. And it depends on the quality. Since the upstream water is not regulated, or it's unregulated and unprotected, it really causes or it affects the people who are living in the downstream. That means people of our region, and headworks are located in Bhutan. And what challenge that, just a second, please. I would like to share the challenge. Our government is mainly focusing on large-scale irrigation and supply scheme, and which is really, I think it has to be analyzed. Governance are more inclined towards centralized irrigation system through dams and canals. And now proliferation of groundwater is also causing water scarcity, and it's changing lifestyle and loss of tradition, and limited documentation and awareness outside the region is really causing great crisis. And recently, a flood and erosion in Chirang and Kokrajhar district has really caused crisis to the people. And in the media and all, we get that Bhutan is releasing water from the dam, but we are not having the accurate knowledge. And here, by participating and sharing our knowledge with the group, I feel like we can really associate and coordinate and work for the betterment of the people of our remote region who are looking forward, so that we can also work in a faster pace towards the path of development. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pratibha ma'am. It's really encouraging to hear how communities can be at the forefront, and then the challenges that they are facing. And this is a very unique example because this Jampi system and the context that Pratibha ji has shown is on the border of India and Bhutan. So she also highlighted the challenges on some of the things that they cannot manage. But she also shared one very important point: the role of customary law and that understanding of how communities are governing these natural resources themselves without any outside support. And it was really interesting to see that the person who is managing this is paid through the funds generated by communities. So quite a sustainable system. So I agree with you. Rather than just thinking about a centralized system, we have to see how these small thinking or governance system could be integrated to create a larger, integrated water resource management strategy. So now, thank you very much. We can go to the questions later. Gitika, I really welcome you now. Now we have Gitika will be presenting on the role of nature-based solution in improving food security, poverty, etc. Basically, its role in the agroecological system. So,
thank you, Vishwa. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very loud.
Yes. So without further wasting any time, I'll just straightway go to the presentation. So here I'll be presenting a case. It is not in a river basin area. It is rather a semi-arid zone. So here I would also like to showcase that how in a semi-arid zone where the rain is really very limited, and there's a lot of other challenges. So how the nature-based solution actually can be integrated and to agroecological farming practices. So now this is the topic of my presentation: application of indigenous knowledge in designing nature-based solution, experience from West Bengal, a small state in India. So this is as you can see, the India, and it is the state is in West Bengal. It is a eastern part of the country. Here it is the state, and this the particular study was done in the western part of West Bengal in two districts, Bankura and Purulia district. As you can see in the map, the Bankura district, we have taken 22 villages, and in Purulia, we have taken 18 villages. So this study has been done in 40 villages all total. And as you can see, it's as I already told you, it's a semi-arid region. So there are the context for starting this activity, this initiative, was that the entire region was very sort of a barren land with semi-arid climate. Food, fodder, and fuel or water insecurity is too much. There is deforestation. There is also undulating terrain. Therefore, the soil depth is very low, and there was consequent evaporation loss, lack of alternative source of livelihood, and therefore people are actually migrating to the nearby towns and cities for labor work. So, and there is also a feature of depletion of the traditional knowledge in those areas, because the young generation is all going out from the villages. So therefore, the area was actually divided any sort of livelihood, as well as water scarcity and so on. And there is also like the practices of the very recent techniques of, all this hybrid variety of seeds and so on. It makes this system, it makes the area more vulnerable, because of this, the usual practice, the traditional practices are also depleting. Along with these socio-economic issues, there is also climate issues like recurrent drought, erratic rainfall, winter is becoming brief and mild, and frequent warm spells in between. Summer is longer, fog scenario is unpredictable, there are lightning increasing. So this was the context of when we actually ideated this particular initiative. So the initiative, this case study is on the enhancing the climate, enhancing enhancing the adaptive and resilient of the livelihood system in Bankura and Purulia district of West Bengal through nature-based solution, executed by Development Research Communication Service Center, a local NGO in West Bengal, based in West Bengal, and it was monitored by Development Alternatives, and we are actually also helping the technical support from Development Alternative, and I am presenting this study from Development Alternative. The goal of those, the initiative was actually developing climate adaptive and resilient livelihood system by adopting agroecological farming practices through integration of traditional and scientific knowledge and using appropriate technology for natural resource management in lateritic zone of West Bengal. The approaches of the NbS approaches, the nature-based solution which we have taken, to do this study is ecological engineering and ecological restoration, ecosystem-based adaptation and ecosystem-based mitigation approaches, and climate adaptation services, green infrastructure, ecosystem-based management, especially the water harvesting structures and so on, and ecosystem protection approaches. So now, while we start, we'll start this initiative, the first and foremost work was to engage with the communities, because whenever we have to do anything, we have to know about the area, about the land, water, the system, the traditional knowledge, the communities, aspirations, and so on. So while the first thing that we started with this, that we are continuously engaging with the communities, and we have done quite a number of series of PRA exercise, and those PRA exercise actually revealed that recurrent drought was the main hazard there, and because of that, food, livelihood security, and all these are actually a problem faced due to this recurrent drought. So we also started at the same time talking to the local government, the Gram Panchayat level, from the villages, because they also would be on board whatever we should be doing, because their inputs is also important and their ownership is also very, very important. So this activities is done both from both the end, from the local communities end and the government and the local government end. So that this was the starting of the project phase, when we started developing the science from the traditional knowledge. So now, what are the several challenges that we face? The most important challenges that we faced is that convince to the local government on the traditional, to continue the traditional practice, to plant the traditional variety or indigenous variety of seeds for plantation, because the usual practice right now is a monocrop plantation, which is done by the forest department in the forest land or community land. So that was one of the biggest challenge, which we sort of solved by engaging with them, continuous dialogue with them. So we finally convinced them for doing sort of an indigenous variety of species. We then continue to plantation the horticultural species, which is also the seeds collected from the forest through the communities and for this plantation. Then another big challenge was to convince the local community to donate land for creating rainwater harvesting structure, because whatever the pond, big ditches and was created, it is for the common use. So each and every family of these, of all caste, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe or other caste, everyone can get the benefit equally. So that was a big challenge to get us. Yeah.
Could you please wrap up in next 2 minutes max? We have very little time for questions and answers.
Okay, so this is, we can see an excavation of the stay pond, where we have used the manual labor, because and also it was a convergence with the government scheme on rural employment guarantee. There we actually use the people have worked in this and they get the livelihood from the government support scheme. So that was the conversion. So other creation of other water harvesting structures which are using the traditional knowledge is that the small ponds and the stay ponds, where also you can see that there is a cultivation, vegetable cultivation. Stay ponds was actually also important indigenous knowledge, that if we have the stay ponds, then when during the lean season, the pond water will go down and the area will decrease and the evapotranspiration will be less. And while the water is going down, this is the space where this is a very fertile area where people can do vegetable cultivation for their livelihood. Here you can see a hapa, which is also a traditional knowledge. Using a traditional knowledge, it is basically to accumulate water from horizontal seepage, because Makur and Goodall districts are the undulating land, so there was a lot of horizontal seepage is there. So this water can accumulate in this area and can be used for irrigation in the nearby areas. So this different water harvesting structure is actually shows that implementation of agroecological farming, creation of the biodiversity, enhancement of the livelihood, reduction of the social and environmental vulnerabilities, as well as restore the ecosystem health. So here I want to also show here, it's along with the traditional knowledge, we have also used the scientific knowledge where we have used a spatial decision support tool where expert knowledge, the spatial data and primary data all have been collected to actually pinpoint where should these different water harvesting structure to be put. Yeah. So I'm coming. So yeah. So this
so if you can directly go on and share the learnings or something.
Yeah.
There is very little time now left. Sorry, Geetika.
Yeah, sorry. And so you can see, as I have already mentioned about the mixed fruit plantation, here it is a barren land. The plantation has been done by the communities. There's the seed was collected from the forest. There's a women's capacities being developed, and they have made this seed bank with a local knowledge, the traditional system, urban pots where the seeds have been conserved for use, and they already have done this plantation. So the outcome of this ecosystem restoration is enhanced biodiversity in the region and build community institution and strong partnership with local government. So now coming to other different backward benefit through the NbS, you can see where the women are actually in the forefront. They have done all this kind of activities. This is actually helped them not only the women, the livelihoods for the women. There's also nutrition security of their families and the women empowerment, since they have contributed for their for family income. They also actually took part in the decision making process into the in their family. So that is actually a great sort of learning and support from the women who can now come forward. Even if the project is over, they can continue this work. You can see another the small initiative, the azolla cultivation by the here. Azolla is actually it was sorry, we should just 30-second more. So this is a practice for biofertilizer. It was actually got totally lost, and it has brought back through this initiative. The economic benefit, I just want to just mention that 4 groups converted a barren area of 4 hectares to vegetable cultivation, earn a profit of 2,500 USD in a year, which is a lot. So there are different other techniques of livelihoods. So what we can found out, the traditional knowledge on agroecological farming is the key to the nature-based solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Geetika. I think here again, the thing which is emerging is like about the knowledge around the local varieties and the practices, the agricultural practices. So I mean, now I think I will take very quickly a couple of questions which are like I really felt are important, if everyone is okay. So first question, I think starting from you, Geetika, when you said that local communities were not very willing to support it. So because this is about indigenous knowledge, so I think what was the problem? It was not about indigenous. It was not something that they were doing earlier. Why they were not agreeing to give their land if it was something based on their indigenous knowledge?
No, it is Vishwa, there are 2 things. One is an indigenous knowledge, which is that knowledge where how can water and soil can be managed and so on. But this pond, which I have already shown you in the picture, it's a huge big area, and it is not a one farmer. It is a land of the group of farmers whom they have to actually donate that land, and because it is a use for the entire community or the entire villages, it's not for the one particular or some families, but not like 5 families who donated this land. So that is that benefit sharing mechanism to convince them to come forward. It took little time, but finally they agreed, and this has been done, and these benefits is now shared by the entire community. So initially by donating land, because land, as you know, is a very, very expensive, and even if a barren land, nobody really wants to donate it that way. So
yeah,
it was an agreement that.
Okay, because there was a thinking among some participants also that what we are presenting here is a bit in conflict with, the role of indigenous knowledge. So anyways, we take your point. And just moving forward, there is one more question. If other panelists also want to ask one question, because we are talking about the documentation of traditional knowledge, that is a gap area in actually, mainstreaming them in nature-based solution. So there were questions on how this thing is addressed. Are there any example? So I have put one example of traditional knowledge, a digital library, which India is managing. And there are similar libraries created by other countries, all Asian countries. And one of the trigger for really doing this by the countries themselves was, I think, the biopiracy issues, where the traditional knowledge was used by private companies and other actors for personal gains without, benefiting the local communities. And sometimes, so that to ensure they get the benefit of those knowledge, it is being documented by many countries in Asia region, mostly through government-led efforts. But I would like to ask anyone else, like Pratibhaji, you are from the local community. If you see any documentation initiatives led by the communities.
May I please request you to repeat it again?
Yeah, so Pratibhaji, there is a question coming, is that documentation of traditional knowledge is a gap area. A lot of knowledge is getting lost. So, I mean, of course, at the government level, governments are doing creating digital library. But at the community level, how like the indigenous community perceive this threat and how they are responding to it, the loss of knowledge?
Yes, like the Bodos, we are proud to say, like they are still preserving this indigenous knowledge as per need-based. And we need more of documentation. And now we are trying to speak to the government that how do we coordinate our traditional knowledge with the modern technology so that we can give more welfare to the society. And for in documentation part, we are really trying hard. We are really trying hard in this field, keeping into account how do we preserve our nature, environment, ecosystem. But it's a big challenge because erosion is one of the main problems. And now with people understanding of mining stone from the hillside, foothills, this is also causing really concern to the people. And we are happy that this documentation process is going on in full speed, and we would like to share our documentation of this indigenous knowledge with the world so that it can be utilized in other part of the region also.
Very nice.
Jampi and Dong, and especially like water harvesting process. But then we are also facing a challenge because of because of many loopholes in our mechanism of governance. So we are trying to fill up the gap, and we are trying to use more of our women in this governance, and we are trying to tap more of our resources. But mass deforestation going on, the climate change is really causing concern to the areas in our region also, and especially unregulated activities in the upper part is also causing concern to our people.
Thank you, ma'am. I think this is a really one practical example coming from someone who is from the indigenous community and very much linked to them. So I don't know, Avinash, how much time we have?
Yeah, we have 11 more minutes for the next session.
How much? Could you please?
11 more minutes.
Okay, so good. We have some time here, so we can continue with a bit of a discussion. Another question, like, I mean, a very clearly, which I see coming from participants.
Sorry to interrupt. I think this next session could be moderated by Khadija. And
sorry.
Yeah, she can moderate this panel. Thank you. Khadija, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that will be good.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Vishwaranjan. I'm Khadija, a youth-based ambassador from Oxfam. So in the previous session, we have heard from our honorable speakers about different indigenous knowledge, how it has been integrated into nature-based solutions from their outstanding cases showcased. And in this phase, we would like to hear something from you, your participant, from all of our participants, to get your insights and suggestions on ways such use of nature-based solutions can be promoted at both basin and transboundary scale. So I'd like to throw two questions for our participants as well as panel members. The first question is, what was your or your community's intervention? So if you have ever been a part of any nature-based solutions using the indigenous knowledge, so you can share it with us and you can write it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and give your responses so that all of us can hear from you. The floor is now open for all of the participants. Okay, as we are getting responses from our participants, I can, yes.
When? You can have now.
Is anyone talking?
Khadija, please continue. I think it was.
Okay, okay. So if until we get responses from our participants, I might invite our speakers to share some inputs in this question. I'm again repeating the question. What was your or your community's intervention? So anyone from our speakers or the panel members? Okay, we have one raised hand.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, Kenneth. Hello.
Mine's Ken Irvin. I'm just curious on the phrasing of the question, because that may be why there was a lack of response, because it could be interpreted that the question was, what intervention did an external person bring, which was based on indigenous knowledge? Or it could be, in which way did the external intervention facilitate the resurfacing or the support of indigenous knowledge? Because I think there's a really interesting discussion there in terms of our promotion of indigenous knowledge when we're not indigenous. So we base it on nature-based solutions that we think are nice or good, but sometimes we are not perhaps having that proper communication with, in fact, those who have the knowledge from their traditions. Or, as in the case I think you showed, or that was shown today, there are knowledge sustainability activities in the past, which perhaps because of various circumstances have been lost on the way. So how do we rediscover them? And I know water harvesting, for example, in Africa is a good example. So I just raised that point really. Because I think it's a very important distinction.
Okay, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, Khadija, please.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth Irvine. That was really meaningful what you have said. As we have learned from our previous presentations and what new things we have been shared with. So if anyone would like to tell your experience or anything, your insights in this case, that would be great. So would you like to share?
Okay, I would like to go if just to add, Kenneth's point. Thanks for pointing out. In terms of intervention, it was actually used by the communities. So it was actually rather external, not external intervention, but rather external support to the communities to restore or to revive this practice. So we found that while working for this project, as the project areas already, suffered by erosion. So we found that people have been using these techniques, but in a scattered way. And I also shared a case story in one of the rivers in one of the villages. One such structure was, funded by the local government through a third-party contractor, where community was not involved, and it was not sustainable in the end. But and while working for this project, we discovered this technique which has been used by community, and what we provided in terms of external support is that we gave them technical engineering perspective to design the structure which was needed by them. An engineering person consulted with the community, gave them some engineering ideas how to structure this process, and communities were consulted, and they adapted the design based on the river-based ecosystem. And also interestingly, these people have their own knowledge where to put this structure in which locations of river, since they possess more knowledge of their area, especially the elderly people who has traditional knowledge about the river-based ecosystem, which comes very handy to again restoring this process. So I won't say that we gave we were externally intervened or externally started this process, but we gave them external support in terms of technical engineering perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nushat. I can see that we have one insight in the Audible chat, which I'd like to read out for all of you. From Kulule Mekonnen, he says, in the drought-prone lowland areas of Ethiopia, pastoralist communities collect using their indigenous knowledge for collecting runoff water in a system called Ila, to collect water for their livestock. All right, so that was really interesting, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we have running short of time, so I'll move on to the second question. So the second question for all of the participants is, what was your or your community's intervention? So if anyone want to say, okay, Ms. Gitika, would you like to say something?
No, I actually raised my hand to response to the earlier question of that what we have done, while indigenous knowledge has been used by the communities, then what was the external support that we have done. So my point is first of all, the indigenous knowledge was there, but it was like, as Nusrat also mentioned, it was like scattered, because all this work needs support, financial support. So that financial support was the first thing which was given to them, but not like individually. So it has done through a planning, and the beneficiaries are selected, that who will do what. Some beneficiaries, I wouldn't say beneficiary, but the community was participated in the excavation of the pond, where some of the beneficiary who has their homestead land has actually gone for the vegetable cultivation. Some has done, whoever has whatever areas that was there with them, because as you know, these communities are really very, very marginal community and have very low land holding. So all those activities has been done in a way that everyone gets some sort of financial support from that. I mean, not financial support, but to do the start the activities. Then the vegetables that is coming, the nutrition that is coming, that is actually for them, and then they can also sell it out. So, and also the other thing was that use not only the traditional knowledge, but also the scientific knowledge like GIS mapping and so on. So where exactly this pond should be created, where exactly this happa should be created, with that with a contour line, with where the maximum water can be accumulated. That kind of support was actually come from the scientific knowledge come from outside. So it's a synergy of both the knowledge. Yeah.
I just want to add here, I think there is one very important question from Kate, and right, I agree. with her when she says bundle itself is not a nature-based solution, or it's an indigenous science or technology. But if you look at, I'm just responding to one question from the participant now here. On the bundles, and here Kate is saying that it seems like Western colonial mindsets calling bundles as a part of the toolkit. But if you look at the presentation that Nusrat presented, it was not just about bundles. So nature-based solution is not just one activity; it's a set of activities, and it builds basically on a compendium of diverse knowledge. It requires the integration of local community in the decision-making process. So, and if you see the photographs that were shown, behind the bundle, so what science that Nusrat was talking about was like having those nadi baithaks to integrate local knowledge, then also, providing additional knowledge and discussion in terms of what could be done, like planting grasses and trees along the bundle sides to make them more durable. So thinking about it, broadening it, of course, just putting the bamboos is not the nature-based solution, but the whole governance process around it and the benefits that is emerging out of it, and the societal challenges that it is.
And look, in one way, your argument might be reasonable, but in another, the speaker clearly claimed bundles as a nature-based solution. They clearly are not. If a whole bunch of extra work goes into making the bundles something more than what the Indigenous people initially developed, then call them something else. But to me, it's a clear case of appropriation. They know once you add something to them that comes from the Western modern science framework, they're no longer bundles, strictly speaking. So to continue to use that word is a misappropriation. They become something else once you add knowledge from a different knowledge system to it. So I think if you want to avoid
So here, Kate, I think, I'm sorry, we had not much time to discuss about.
Sure, I think
that's because your speakers were terribly undisciplined and didn't stick to their 8 minutes like they should have.
Yeah. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for your very insightful intervention. And we are apologies that some of the speakers went well over time. So we're just wrapping up the session. And may I request Rajan to please go to the concluding remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Raj. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the respected participants from where you are joining the meeting. So now we are almost at the end of the session, and I'm here to summarize the key points of this super interactive session. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Asa Hin, a Counselor Program Manager, Environment Climate, the Embassy of Sweden, Bangkok, for her opening remarks. So her opening remarks has highlighted the importance of inclusive nature-based solution, which can help to minimize complex challenges. And as there are a number of impacts that is arising in the present globe, so including the environment and the communities. So thanks goes to Vishwaranjan Singha for taking participants to interactive sessions on nature-based solutions, also introducing to nature-based solutions. Thanks to Gitika, Pratibha, Nusrat for sharing the example of nature-based solution from Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Meghna Basin. So further thanks to Jyotiraj Patra and Khadija for their excellent moderation, and to all participants who brainstormed throughout the session. So thank you so much for that. So I'm very glad to share some of the key points. So the nature-based solutions have common foundations, but a distinct approach. The example on indigenous knowledge applied nature-based solutions from Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Meghna Basin that illustrate that different nature-based solution approach have been applied to overcome similar societal challenges. It has helped in safeguarding both the nature and the society. So the example could be generating money and contributing to the environment in both the ways. So second one is nature-based solution uses the different tools that addresses the issues resulting from disaster, climate change, and maximum resource use, societal challenges. The example from West Bengal is illustrate that the nature-based solution, for example, creation of water harvesting structure using traditional and scientific knowledge, has been able to overcome climate change issues and societal challenges. Further, use of bamboo in Nepal and Bangladesh has also helped to protect the land erosion. So the next point that I would say summarize from the discussion is the nature-based solutions are transparent, inclusive, and help in empowering the governance process. These ideas are generated at local level where the decision-making process follows from bottom-up approach and can significantly contribute to social, economic, and empowerment of communities. As you have seen in most of the presentations, that there is a community leadership from the design to the implementation. The speaker talked about economic empowerment through the use of nature-based solution in Ganga Brahmaputra basins. So as an example, community leadership is Zampi irrigation in border area between Bhutan and India, where the clear women leadership can be illustrated. So the next point that I want to highlight is the integration of indigenous knowledge in nature-based solution in its existing natural or man-made infrastructure with long-term socio-economic and environmental benefits. Establishment of seed bank and restoration of traditional pond by the women in West Bengal, which provides a long-term socio-economic and environmental benefit. So looking at it, there are a lot of challenges that our speakers have highlighted, and in the discussions also, so there were a number of challenges so that has been seen while implementing this indigenous knowledge on nature-based solutions. So I want to highlight some of the key way forwards. The integration of indigenous knowledge, nature-based solutions provide ample of environmental and social benefits, and government ownership is must, that is required to receive the optimum benefit. And the next way forward is there are a number of indigenous knowledges on nature-based solutions, so which need to be documented and shared. Such sharing could contribute to minimize societal and climate risks, as well as nature-based solution can be made sustainable. So the next point that I want to highlight as a way forward is women, indigenous people, youth, as everyone talks about their empowerment, so which can be done at optimum level if indigenous knowledge on nature-based solutions are applied. Last but not the least, there are a number of indigenous knowledges that need to be explored, as many of them has already been lost, so which is only possible through coordination and collaboration among civil society organizations and government. So I request for optimum collaborations of everyone for exploring and documentation. It is only possible if we can demonstrate outcomes of nature-based solution to wider communities, including the government. So with all these summary points, I would like to thank you, SIDA and TROSA project team, World Water Week team that created an opportunity to discuss about indigenous knowledge for nature-based solution, which help to minimize the current societal challenges. Now, with this, we are ending our session, and thank you so much for your participation. Stay safe and healthy in this COVID era. Thank you so much. Over to Raj.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you for summing it up. And I would just like to thank all the participants for your engagement, insightful inputs and suggestions. We will take them on board as we move forward in the discussion in the project, but also engage with some of you subsequently. So thank you everyone for your time and your interest in this session, and we will stay in touch. So please take care. Thank you, everyone.
We are closing this session. Thank you.
I mean, can we close the session for the participant, and others can have a quick chat? Is it possible to have a quick chat among the panelists?
Yes.
Is it closed for the participant? Is there a co-host here? Is there a technician here?
I think the co-host can remove, the participant.
Vishwa, I'm not sure whether we can do it here. Maybe we have to do it separately.
Okay, I think let's do it as a follow-up.